The first time I saw Thomas Grant, I thought he was broken. Not damaged, mind you. Not injured or malfunctioning. Just broken. Like someone had assembled a human being but forgotten to install the urgency module, or the survival instinct, or, honestly, any sense of self-preservation whatsoever. My name is Veke. Commander Veke, if we are being formal about it, which we absolutely should be, because I earned that title through 16 cycles of distinguished service in the Galactic Defense Initiative. 16 cycles of watching recruits from 100 different species stumble, fail, adapt, and occasionally, just occasionally, succeed. But Thomas Grant? He was something else entirely. The training complex on Station Helix 9 hummed with its usual chaos that morning. Chaos. The organized kind where 300 recruits from 47 species all tried to prove they belonged among the elite. The kind where you could smell desperation mixing with determination in the recycled air. I stood on the observation deck, all four of my eyes tracking different sections of the training floor simultaneously. It is one of the advantages of being Corthan. We see everything. We miss nothing. It makes us excellent commanders, and if I am being honest, insufferable dinner companions. Commander Veke, my aide, a nervous little pixen named Rhett, chittered beside me. His antennae twitched with anxiety. They always did. The new batch has arrived. 32 recruits. 12 species represented. Show me the humans, I said. Because humans. Oh, humans. They were the reason Station Helix 9 had tripled its medical staff in the last cycle. They were the reason we now had a dedicated fire suppression system in the armory. They were the reason I woke up every morning wondering what fresh catastrophe would unfold before lunch. Brett pulled up the display. 6 humans in this batch. 5 of them looked exactly like what I had come to expect. Fit. Alert. Eyes bright with that peculiar human mixture of excitement and controlled aggression. Already sizing up the competition. Already calculating angles. Then there was Thomas Grant. He stood at the back of the group, and I swear to the Void Mothers, he looked like he had just woken up from a nap. His uniform hung slightly crooked. His hair pointed in directions that defied at least 3 laws of physics. And his expression? Blank. Not thoughtful, not intense. Just blank. Like someone had asked him a question in a language he did not speak, and he was still processing the sounds. That one, I said, pointing with my lower right arm. What is his name? Rhett checked his tablet. Thomas Grant. Age 24 standard cycles. Human. From a planet called Earth, northern continent, something called Canada. Canada, I repeated. The word felt strange in my mouth. And his test scores. A physical assessment, 70th percentile. Combat simulation, 65th percentile. Tactical evaluation, 82nd percentile. Psychological profile, passed with notes. Notes? The evaluator wrote, unconventional problem-solving approach. Recommend observation. I studied Thomas Grant more carefully. He had moved to a bench and was now sitting down watching the other recruits with that same blank expression. Not intimidated, not awed, just watching. Interesting, I muttered. Rhett's antennae perked up. Sir? Nothing. Begin the orientation. The orientation was standard. We gathered all the recruits in the main hall, a massive space with walls that displayed our most distinguished graduates, heroes, legends, the beings who had gone on to command fleets, lead diplomatic missions, save entire worlds. No pressure. I stepped onto the platform, and the room fell silent. Even the humans, usually so chatty, so unable to simply shut up for 5 seconds, went quiet. Welcome to Station Helix 9, I began, my voice amplified across the hall. You are here because someone somewhere thought you had potential. My job is to prove them wrong. A few nervous laughs. The humans grinned. They always enjoyed that line. For the next 12 weeks, you will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. Combat, strategy, endurance, teamwork. You will fail. You will fall. You will want to quit. Many of you will quit. This is expected. This is acceptable. What is not acceptable is wasting my time pretending you belong here when you do not. I let that sink in, my eyes scanning the crowd. Most recruits were leaning forward, alert, ready. The Kryn were already flexing their mandibles. The Dorvash were checking their equipment. The humans were, well, being human, whispering to each other, making faces, probably already planning something stupid, except Thomas Grant. He sat in the middle row, hands folded in his lap, staring at nothing? The ceiling? The back of someone's head? I honestly could not tell. He looked like he was waiting for a shuttle that was already 3 hours late and he had given up caring. Training begins at dawn cycle tomorrow. I continued. You will be divided into squads of 8. Mixed species. You will eat together, sleep together, fight together. Or you will fail together. Dismissed. The hall erupted into motion. Recruits scattered, forming clusters, already networking, already politicking. The smart ones were identifying potential squad mates. The ambitious ones were identifying competition. Thomas Grant stood up slowly, stretched, and then wandered toward the exit like he was taking a casual stroll through a park. I made a note on my tablet. Grant, Thomas. Human, possibly defective. Monitor closely. That night I reviewed all the files. Because that is what good commanders do. We obsess, we analyze, we lose sleep so our recruits can, hopefully, survive. Thomas Grant's file was thin, not in a concerning way. He had simply lived a remarkably unremarkable life. No military family, no history of violence, no childhood trauma that screamed future super soldier. He had worked as, and I had to read this twice to make sure I understood it correctly, a park ranger, whatever that meant. Something about trees and wildlife and preventing humans from doing stupid things in nature. The evaluation notes were more interesting. Physical assessment. Passed all requirements but showed no particular excellence. Moved efficiently, but without flash. The assessor wrote, appears to be conserving energy. Possible fatigue or lack of motivation. Combat simulation. Solid performance but unconventional tactics. Frequently retreated when advance was expected. Chose defensive positions over aggressive assault. Won by attrition rather than dominance. The assessor wrote, either very smart or very lucky. Time will tell. Tactical evaluation. Highest score in the batch. Solved problems in ways the instructors had not anticipated. Created solutions that were, and I am quoting here, annoyingly effective. One evaluator wrote, if this man was any slower, he would be going backwards. But somehow, he is always exactly where he needs to be. Psychological profile. Calm under pressure. No signs of anxiety or aggression disorders. Evaluators note, subject appears almost preternaturally relaxed. When asked if he understood the dangers of initiative training, he replied, yep. When pressed for more detail, he said, seems risky. Recommend observation to determine if this is confidence or apathy. I closed the file and leaned back in my chair. All 4 of my eyes ached. It had been a long day. Rhett, I called out. My aide appeared in the doorway instantly. He never seemed to sleep. Yes, Commander. Tomorrow's first exercise. The Gauntlet. I want Thomas Grant in Squad 3. Squad 3, sir? That is Instructor Zale's group. I know. Yeah. Rhett's antennae drooped. Instructor Zale is intense. I know, I said again, smiling. Well, not smiling. Corthan, do not smile. But I made the facial expression that indicates satisfaction. If Grant is slow, Zale will fix him. If Grant is something else, Zale will find out. Either way, we learn. Yes, Commander. The next morning arrived with the artificial dawn that cycled through Station Helix 9. But I was already on the observation deck, coffee substitute in hand. Horrible stuff. but necessary. The Gauntlet was our opening exercise. Not the hardest course we had, but definitely the most educational. A kilometer of obstacles designed to test speed, strength, coordination, and most importantly, the ability to keep going when everything in your body screamed stop. Squad 3 assembled on the starting line. 8 recruits. 2 Dorvash, massive and armored. 1 Kryn, all chitin and aggression. 2 Pixen, small and quick. 1 Talvik, gray-skinned and serious. 1 human female named Jessica Park. And Thomas Grant. Instructor Zale stood before them, his 6 limbs crossed in what I recognized as his disappointed stance. Zale was hexapod, patient as stone when needed, but absolutely ruthless when his patience ran out. "You have 30 minutes to complete the Gauntlet," Zale announced, his voice carrying across the training ground. "You fail and you run it again. Fail twice and you run it at night. Fail 3 times and you explain to Commander Vec why you are wasting station resources." Questions. Silence. Good. Begin. The recruits exploded forward. The Dorvash led, their powerful legs eating up ground. The Kryn was right behind, mandibles clicking with excitement. Jessica Park and the Talvik stayed in the middle, pacing themselves. The Pixen darted around obstacles with their natural agility. And Thomas Grant? He jogged. Not sprinted, not ran. Jogged. Like he was doing a warm-up lap before the real exercise started. "By the ancestors," I muttered, "he is going to fail in the first 5 minutes." But he did not fail. The first obstacle was a wall, 4 meters high. Smooth surface. Requires either a running jump, or teamwork, or both. The Dorvash hit it first, their claws finding purchase in microscopic grooves. They went up and over in seconds. The Kryn followed, using sheer arm strength. Jessica Park waited, then got a boost from the Talvik. The Pixen simply scrambled up using their sticky feet. Thomas Grant arrived last, breathing easy, not even winded. He looked at the wall, looked at his squad disappearing over the top. Then he walked along the base, found a support strut, and used it to climb up the side at an angle before swinging over the top. Slower than everyone else, but also easier, more efficient. "Interesting," I said again. Brett was beside me, tablet active. His heart rate is elevated but stable, well within acceptable parameters. The second obstacle was a rope bridge over a pit. Not a deep pit, not a dangerous pit, but definitely a pit you did not want to fall into because it was filled with cold water and you would have to climb out soaking wet and miserable. The Dorvash charged across, their weight making the bridge swing wildly. The Kryn followed, mandibles gripping the ropes for balance. Jessica Park went next, moving carefully but quickly. The Talvik was halfway across when one of the ropes snapped. Not completely. Just one strand. But enough to make the whole bridge twist sideways, and suddenly the Talvik was dangling over the pit, holding on with one hand while his legs kicked empty air. The Dorvash had already crossed. The Kryn was on the far side. Jessica Park was frozen on the bridge, too far to help. The Pixen were too small to pull him up. And Thomas Grant? He had not stepped onto the bridge yet. He stood at the edge, hands on his hips, watching the situation with that same blank expression. The Talvik was losing his grip. 30 seconds, maybe, before he fell. "Move." Zale roared from the sideline. "Someone help him." Thomas Grant sighed. Actually sighed. Like this was mildly inconvenient, but not particularly urgent. Then he walked to the anchor point where the bridge was secured, examined the mechanism, and released one of the tension controls. The bridge dropped 6 inches and swung hard to the right. The Talvik shouted in surprise, but the movement swung him close enough to the support pillar that he could grab it with his free hand and climb to safety. Thomas Grant retightened the tension control, tested the bridge with one foot, and then walked across at a leisurely pace while everyone else stared. Did he just Rhett began? Yes, I said. He did. The rest of the Gauntlet continued in similar fashion. Every obstacle that looked impossible, Thomas Grant found the angle of the weakness. The solution that was not quite cheating, but definitely not what the designers intended. The climbing net? He went under it through a gap in the framework. The balance beam? He sat down and scooted across on his rear end. The tire run? He stepped on every other tire, cutting his steps in half. He finished the gauntlet in 29 minutes and 40 seconds. Not first, not last, exactly in the middle of the pack, but he was not tired. Not really. While the Dorvash were panting, the Kryn was clicking irritably, and Jessica Park was bent over catching her breath. Thomas Grant stood there looking like he had just finished a light walk around the block. Instructor Zale approached him slowly. All 6 limbs were now rigid, which in hexapod body language meant he was either very impressed or very angry. Sometimes both. "Grant?" Zale said. "Yes, sir," Thomas Grant replied. "You are slow." "Yes, sir?" "You did not complete a single obstacle the way it was designed." "No, sir." "Why?" Thomas Grant shrugged. Actually shrugged. The instructions said complete the gauntlet. They did not say how. I completed it. Zale stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. I watched from the observation deck, all 4 of my eyes focused entirely on Thomas Grant now. He had moved to sit on a bench, pulled out a water container, and was drinking slowly while watching the next squad prepare for their run. "Rhett," I said quietly. "Yes, Commander?" "I need you to pull up every recording we have of Grant. Physical assessments. Combat sims. Everything. I want to watch them all." "That will take hours, sir." "I have time." Because I had a feeling. The kind of feeling that comes from 16 cycles of watching recruits. The kind of feeling that whispers, "Pay attention, because something important is happening here and you are going to miss it if you blink." They called him slow. But I was starting to suspect that Thomas Grant was not slow at all. He was deliberate. And there is a difference. A very, very important difference. I spent the next 3 days watching recordings of Thomas Grant. Not because I am obsessive. Well, not only because I am obsessive, but because every single piece of footage showed me something that made my analysis centers itch with confusion. During weapons qualification, Grant scored acceptable marks. Not exceptional, not terrible, just acceptable. But the instructor's notes said he had fired exactly the minimum number of rounds required to pass. No practice shots, no warm-up. He picked up the plasma rifle, aimed, fired, passed, and put it down like he was checking items off a grocery list. During hand-to-hand combat training, he lost more matches than he won. But, and this part made me rewatch the footage 4 times, he never got seriously hit. Every loss was a timeout. Every win was because his opponent exhausted themselves trying to land a solid blow. Grant just moved, shifted weight, stepped aside, and made people miss by centimeters, and then waited for them to get tired. During the zero-gravity navigation test, he finished dead last, 47 minutes when the average was 32, but his trajectory was perfect, literally perfect. The simulation showed he had burned exactly 14% of the fuel everyone else used, that he had not rushed, had not panicked when other recruits went spinning past him. Just calculated, adjusted, moved. "Commander," Rhett said, interrupting my 5th viewing of the zero-gravity footage. "You have been watching that human for 3 days. Respectfully, sir, is this necessary?" I paused the recording. Turned all 4 eyes on my aide. "Rhett, do you know what separates good soldiers from great ones?" His antennae twitched. "Superior physical abilities?" "No." "Tactical genius?" "No." "No." "Unbreakable spirit?" "No, it is efficiency." I stood up, my joints popping after too long in the chair. Great soldiers do not waste anything. Not energy, not ammunition, not time. They do exactly what is required. Nothing more. Nothing less. Because in actual combat, waste gets you killed. Brett processed this. And you think Grant is efficient? I think Grant operates on a level of efficiency that looks like laziness to everyone else. I pulled up the training schedule. What is next for Squad 3? On the Warren. Tomorrow at dawn cycle. I felt all four of my eyes widen. Already? That is a week 4 exercise. Instructor Zale requested permission to accelerate the schedule. He said, and I quote, "If Grant is going to break the rules, I want to see him do it somewhere interesting." I had to make that satisfied facial expression again. Zale was many things. Predictable was not one of them. The Warren was, how do I explain this? Imagine a 3-dimensional maze. Now imagine it is dark. Now imagine it is filled with automated defense systems, holographic enemies, environmental hazards, and approximately 6,000 ways to fail. Now imagine you have to navigate it as a squad while completing objectives and not dying. Most recruits hated the Warren. It was claustrophobic, confusing, deliberately designed to split up squads and force individuals to either adapt or panic. I arrived at the observation deck before dawn. Below, Squad 3 was gearing up. Full combat loadouts. Stun weapons, because we preferred our recruits alive. Helmet cameras, because we liked to see exactly how they failed. Personal shields, because the automated defenses were not gentle. Thomas Grant was, of course, the last one ready. Not because he was slow putting on his gear, but because he was examining everyone else's equipment first. "Park, your left knee actuator is loose," he said, pointing at Jessica Park's armor joint. She looked down, tested it, and swore. "How did you even see that?" Grant shrugged. "It was clicking when you walked." He moved to one of the Dorvash. "Kren, your weapon's energy cell is not seated properly. See that indicator light? Should be green, yours is yellow." The Dorvash, Kren, checked his rifle and growled something that probably meant thank you in his language. Grant continued around the squad, finding small problems. A loose strap here, a misaligned sight there. Nothing critical. But in the Warren, small problems became big problems very quickly. Instructor Zale watched this with 3 of his 6 limbs crossed. "Grant, are you the equipment inspector now?" "No, sir," Grant replied, finally strapping on his own gear. "Just figured we should start without any obvious handicaps." How thoughtful. "Are you ready now?" "Yes, sir." "Then enter the Warren. You have 2 hours. 5 objectives scattered throughout. Find them. Complete them. Extract at the far exit. Try not to die. Or do. I get paid either way." The squad entered through the main hatch. The door sealed behind them with a hiss that sounded ominous even from the observation deck. Inside, the Warren was exactly as terrible as always. Narrow corridors with random dead ends. Rooms that suddenly sealed and filled with smoke. Automated turrets that appeared from walls. Holographic enemies that looked real enough to make you waste ammunition. Squad 3 moved in standard formation. Dorvash in front, their armor and strength making them natural shields. Kryn and Talvik in the middle, providing firepower. Pixon on the flanks, using their size to scout side passages. Jessica Park and Thomas Grant in the rear. The first objective was simple. Locate and disable a power node. The squad found it within 10 minutes. Kren smashed it with his rifle butt. Objective complete. They moved deeper into the Warren. That is when things got interesting. A corridor split into 3 paths. The Dorvash wanted to go left. The Kryn wanted to go right. The Talvek suggested splitting up to cover more ground. "Bad idea," Thomas Grant said from the back. Everyone turned to look at him. "The last time a squad split up in here, it took them 4 hours to regroup," he continued in that same mild tone. "I read the after-action reports last night. We stay together." "And which way do we go?" Kren demanded, his mandibles clicking with impatience. Grant pointed straight ahead. "Middle path." "Why?" "Because the left path has scorch marks at knee height, which means automated defenses." The right path has too many sight lines, which means ambush zones. The middle path looks boring. So that is probably the safe one, or the least dangerous one. I am not promising anything. The Talvek studied the three paths, then nodded slowly. He is right. Middle path. They took the middle path. 3 minutes later, automated turrets emerged from the walls of both the left and right corridors they had avoided. Grant did not say "I told you so." He did not need to. His expression said it perfectly well. The second objective was harder. Rescue a simulated casualty from a sealed room while under fire. The room had one entrance. Turrets covered it from multiple angles. The casualty dummy was rigged to trigger a failure alarm if handled incorrectly. The Dorvash wanted to charge in, tank the turret fire with their shields, grab the dummy, and charge back out. Also a bad idea, Grant said. You have a better one, human. Kren growled. Grant looked at the ceiling. Pixen, can you fit in that ventilation shaft? One of the Pixen, a female named Trill, examined the vent. Yes, barely. Can you drop down into the room from above? Probably. Can you attach a cable to the dummy and pull it up? Trill's antennae perked up with understanding. Yes. 5 minutes later, the casualty dummy was retrieved through the ceiling vent. 0 shots fired. 0 damage taken. Objective complete. Instructor Zale's voice came through the squad's communication system. That was creative. I hate it. Continue. They continued. Day. The third objective required hacking a terminal while defending against waves of holographic enemies. Standard combat scenario. The Talvek started hacking. The rest of the squad formed a perimeter. The holograms attacked in waves. First wave, easy. Basic patterns. The squad handled them without trouble. Second wave, harder. The holograms used cover. Flanked. Coordinated. The squad started burning through ammunition. Shields started flashing yellow warnings. Third wave, brutal. The holograms came from everywhere. The squad was getting overwhelmed. Talvek, how much longer? Jessica Park shouted, firing at a hologram that appeared behind them. 2 minutes. Maybe 3. We do not have 3 minutes. Thomas Grant was in the corner, barely firing his weapon. Just watching. His head turning slowly, tracking the hologram spawn points. Then he walked to the wall, examined a panel, and yanked it open. Inside was a bundle of cables. He pulled one specific cable free, and suddenly half the holograms vanished. What did you do? Kren demanded. The holograms run on the same power grid as the terminal, Grant said, examining the cable. Cut the power to Sector C, lose half the projectors. We only have to fight half as many enemies now. The Talvek stopped hacking. That is cheating. No, that is using available resources. Grant plugged the cable back in, and the holograms returned. Then he unplugged it again. You want me to leave it unplugged or not? Unplug it, everyone said simultaneously. Objective 3. Complete. By now I was leaning so far over the observation deck railing that Rhett had to grab my lower arm to keep me from falling. He is, Rhett stammered. Rewriting the exercise parameters in real time, I finished. Yes, I noticed. Objectives 4 and 5 followed similar patterns. Problems that seemed impossible. Solutions that were obvious once Grant pointed them out. The squad stopped questioning him by Objective 5. They just waited for him to assess the situation and suggest the most efficient approach. They reached the extraction point in 1 hour and 17 minutes. 43 minutes under the time limit. 0 casualties. Minimal ammunition expenditure. They were the fastest squad to complete the warren in the history of Station Helix 9. When they exited, Instructor Zale was waiting. All 6 limbs were crossed now. Definitely angry. Grant, Zale said, his voice dangerously quiet. Yes, sir. Do you know why we run these exercises? Oh, to train us for combat situations, sir. to train you to follow orders and work within established parameters, Zale corrected. Not to. What did you do in there? Hack the power grid? Abuse the ventilation system? Ignore the intended solutions? Grant nodded slowly. I understand, sir. Should we run it again? Do it properly this time. The entire squad groaned. Zale's expression, which was hard to read because hexapod faces are not exactly expressive, seemed to shift between fury and something else. Respect, maybe? Confusion? Indigestion? No, Zale said finally. You will not run it again. Because apparently you already broke it. Maintenance will need 3 hours to reset all the systems you tampered with. Dismissed. The squad scattered. Most of them were already talking excitedly about the run, replaying moments, celebrating their record time. Thomas Grant walked to a bench, sat down, and started drinking water. Always with the water. The man hydrated like it was a competitive sport. I left the observation deck and made my way down to the training floor. Rhett followed, his antennae radiating curiosity. Grant saw me approaching. He did not stand. He did not salute. Just nodded politely and kept drinking. Grant, I said. Commander Veke, he replied. You set a station record today. Did we? Cool, cool. He said cool. Like setting an impossible record was mildly pleasant news. Like I had told him it was going to be partly cloudy tomorrow. How did you know about the power grid configuration in the Warren? I asked. I read the station technical manual. Figured if I was going to be here for 12 weeks, I should know how things work. Just in case. Just in case of what? He shrugged. Just in case. You never know when information might be useful. I studied him with all 4 eyes. He looked back with those human eyes, calm and patient and completely unbothered by my scrutiny. The other recruits think you are slow, I said. I know. Does that bother you? Not really. They can think whatever they want. It does not change what I do. And what is it you do, exactly? Thomas Grant finished his water, capped the container, and stood up. He was tall for a human. Not as tall as me, but tall enough that we could look at each other almost eye to eye. Well, eyes to eyes. Plural. I do what needs to be done. Commander. Or no more, no less. Fast is only useful if you are going in the right direction. Slow and right beats fast and wrong every single time. Then he nodded again, politely, and walked away to join his squad. I stood there for a long moment, processing. Sir, Rhett ventured, what do we do about him? Do about him? Rhett, we promote him. In our own way. Promote him, sir. He is not slow. He is strategic. There is a difference. And if I can train an entire generation of recruits to think like that. I made the satisfied expression again. We will have the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. The weeks continued. Training intensified. Every exercise became harder, more complex, more designed to push recruits past their breaking points. And every single time, Thomas Grant found the angle. During the hostage negotiation scenario, he solved it by offering the holographic terrorists his lunch. When asked why, he said, people are more reasonable when they are not hungry. The terrorists accepted the lunch and released the hostages. Scenario complete. During the zero-atmosphere combat drill, he conserved oxygen by moving in slow, deliberate motions while everyone else flailed and panicked. He finished with 17% oxygen remaining. Everyone else finished below 5%, with 3 recruits requiring emergency supplemental tanks. During the leadership evaluation, where each recruit had to command the squad through a simulated battle, Grant won by doing almost nothing. He assigned positions based on each member's strengths, gave clear instructions, and then stayed quiet unless someone asked a question. The squad operated like a machine. They did not need him micromanaging because he had set them up to succeed. Other squads started noticing, started asking questions, started copying Grant's methods. Word spread through the station. The slow human who was not actually slow. the one who thought before acting. The one who made hard things look easy by refusing to do them the hard way. By week 10, Thomas Grant had become something of a legend. Not the inspiring kind. Not the hero kind. You the weird kind. The kind where people whispered and pointed and wondered how someone so unremarkable could be so consistently effective. Then came the final exercise. The Crucible. Every station has one. A final test that combines everything learned. Combat, strategy, survival, leadership, ethics. Pushed to the absolute limit. Only 70% of recruits pass. The rest wash out or request reassignment to less demanding positions. The Crucible at Station Helix 9 was particularly nasty. 48 hours in a simulated hostile environment. Squads had to complete objectives while managing limited resources, hostile terrain, enemy combatants, and this was the fun part. Ethical dilemmas designed to make you question every decision. Fail to complete enough objectives. Fail the exercise. Violate the ethical guidelines. Fail the exercise. Lose too many squad members. Fail the exercise. The parameters were tight. The margin for error was non-existent. Squad 3 drew a difficult scenario. Rescue mission on a colony planet. Multiple civilian populations. Limited extraction windows. Enemy forces with superior numbers and firepower. And a ticking clock because the colony's life support was failing. I watched from the observation deck as the scenario began. The squad inserted via drop pod, landing in the simulation environment. Immediately, they were under fire. Automated defense systems. Enemy patrols. Environmental hazards. The Dorvash took point, shields up, absorbing fire. The Kryn provided suppressing fire. The Pixen scouted ahead. Jessica Park coordinated movement. The Talvec handled technical problems. And Thomas Grant? He pulled out a tablet, linked it to the squad's tactical network, and started analyzing data. Grant. Jessica Park shouted over the sound of simulated gunfire. We could use another rifle up here. Give me 2 minutes, Grant replied, not looking up from his tablet. We might not have 2 minutes. Then make them. But the squad held position. Barely. Shields were draining. Ammunition was depleting. The enemy was advancing. Then Grant looked up. Got it. Follow me. Single file. Exactly where I step. Trust me. He started walking. Not running, walking, through an area that should have been saturated with enemy fire. But somehow, inexplicably, he was moving through blind spots. Through gaps in the coverage, through spaces where the automated defenses could not track him. The squad followed, single file, stepping exactly where he stepped. They crossed 200 meters of hostile territory without taking a single hit. How? Kryn demanded when they reached cover. Grant pointed at his tablet. The defense grid has a pattern, 37-second cycle. Predictable rotation. If you time it right and move through the dead zones, you are invisible. I watched it for 2 minutes, mapped the pattern, found the safe path. The Talvec stared. You mapped an entire defense grid in 2 minutes? It was not that complicated, mostly just counting and basic geometry. They continued. Every obstacle, Grant analyzed. Every problem, he found the efficient solution. When they needed to cross a river, he did not suggest swimming. He found the old bridge supports hidden underwater, and they walked across on submerged footing. When they needed to rescue civilians from a building, he did not suggest a frontal assault. He found a maintenance tunnel that let them enter undetected, extract the civilians, and exit before the enemy even knew they were there. When they ran low on medical supplies, he did not suggest rationing. He found an abandoned enemy outpost, raided their supplies, and restocked completely. 48 hours, 17 objectives, all completed. 0 casualties. Minimal resource expenditure. Squad 3 passed the Crucible with the highest score in the current training cycle. When they emerged from the simulation chamber, exhausted but triumphant, Instructor Zale was waiting. But this time, all 6 of his limbs were relaxed. almost respectful. Squad 3, Zale said. You have completed the Crucible. Congratulations. You are now qualified for active duty assignments. He paused. Grant, stay behind. The rest of you are dismissed. The squad left, casting curious glances back at Thomas Grant, who stood there with his hands in his pockets, looking mildly curious about what would happen next. Zale waited until they were alone. Then he gestured for Grant to follow him. I watched from the observation deck as they walked to a private briefing room. I should not have followed. It was not professional. But I did anyway, because I needed to know. I positioned myself outside the briefing room door, which was, conveniently, slightly ajar. Rhett stood beside me, practically vibrating with curiosity. Grant, Zale began. You are going to receive an offer, a special assignment, advanced tactical training, deep reconnaissance, special operations, the kind of work that requires someone who thinks differently. Okay, Grant said. You do not seem surprised. Commander Vecchi has been watching me for 10 weeks. Either I was failing spectacularly or succeeding in a way she found interesting. Since I have not been expelled, I figured it was the second thing. Zale made a sound that might have been laughter. You are observant. I try. The offer is voluntary. It will be harder than anything you have experienced here. The washout rate is 80%. Most candidates do not last a month. Are you interested? There was a pause. I leaned closer, straining to hear. Can I ask a question first? Grant said. Of course. Why do you want me? I am not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most aggressive. There are better soldiers in my squad alone. Zale was quiet for a moment. Grant, do you know what kills most soldiers in actual combat? Poor planning? Hubris. Overconfidence. The belief that aggression and speed will solve every problem. The refusal to adapt. The inability to see the solution that is right in front of them because they are too busy doing things the hard way. Another pause. You are slow, Grant. But you are slow because you are thinking. You are efficient because you refuse to waste effort on pointless displays of strength. You win because you understand that victory is not about dominating the enemy. It is about achieving the objective with minimal cost. That mindset? That is rare. That is valuable. That is what we need. I heard movement. Grant standing, probably. I will do it, he said. When do I start? 2 days. Report to Docking Bay 7. Bring minimal gear. Everything else will be provided. Yes, sir. The meeting ended. I moved away from the door quickly, Rhett scrambling to keep up. We made it back to the observation deck just as Grant emerged from the briefing room. He looked up, somehow knowing exactly where I would be watching. Our eyes met across the distance. He nodded. Once. Respectful. Acknowledging. I nodded back. Bush? Then Thomas Grant turned and walked away, moving at his own pace, unhurried, efficient, exactly as slow as he needed to be, and not one bit slower. Sir, Rhett said quietly. What just happened? I watched Grant disappear down the corridor. We found what we were looking for, Rhett. Someone who understands that the fastest way to win is not always the fastest way to move. Someone who knows that slow is smooth, and smooth is fast, and fast is only useful if you survive to see the end. And what do we do now? Now we train more like him? Because if one human can rewrite our entire tactical doctrine just by refusing to hurry? I made that satisfied expression one more time. Imagine what an entire army of them could do. They called him slow. He called them overconfident. And in the end, slow and smart beat fast and reckless every single time. Because Thomas Grant understood something that took me 16 cycles to fully appreciate. Speed is not about how fast you move. It is about how efficiently you arrive. And efficiency? That is what separates the survivors from the casualties. That is what separates the good from the great. That is what makes a human, against all odds, against all expectations, into something truly dangerous. Not because they are fast, but because they refuse to be rushed. And that, as I learned watching Thomas Grant, is the most human thing of all.